Hey nature photographers, it's Lee Hoy, and I'm back with another video, and this time we're going to take a look at how to make the most use out of your exposure compensation button for wildlife autofocus. Okay, I'm going to walk you through how to do that, and I'm going to explain to you why I do that. See, when it comes to wildlife photography, autofocus is one of the most important elements that we learn how to master. And here's a little tip that I'm going to share with you that I think will change how you go about acquiring autofocus. So stay tuned. Howdy from West Texas. I'm Lee Hoy, professional nature photographer, and this is my YouTube channel, Lee Hoy Photography. I'm an OM system ambassador, photography workshop instructor for Wildside Nature Tours of Precision Camera and Video, and contributing author for the Journal of Wildlife Photography. All right, before I dive into this little tip, I want to tell you I'm working on some OM system only workshops. I still have space on the 2025 Grand Teton Yellowstone 2-week workshop. That covers all computational features. I'm going to be recording a video trip report about that as well. I'm still working on the itinerary and the cost for the OM system only macro workshop in Costa Rica. I already have 2 people signed up for that, even though I don't have that on the website just yet, and that will be the Wildside Nature Tours website. I hope you're enjoying the holidays. I know you've had Thanksgiving, so you're still full of turkey and stuffing, looking ahead to Christmas and other holidays you may celebrate. So thanks for being a part of my channel. Let's talk about why I reprogrammed the exposure compensation button. Well, I shoot in manual mode 100% of the time. And for bird and flight photography, you have to be in manual mode. Now, some people may want to argue with me. I can do demonstrations. I can show you how every other mode, exposure mode, fails. I can show you how auto ISO fails for bird and flight photography. I know some friends who use auto ISO, but they are using it because their camera doesn't have a control for ISO. So all they're doing is being able to use the exposure compensation button like an ISO button. They are not allowing the camera to pick the ISO. Nobody who knows how camera exposure works would just let the camera pick ISO for you. So let me get into what we're going to be talking about here. Why do I reprogram the exposure compensation button? I shoot in manual mode. So the exposure compensation button is a waste for me. I don't need it. I'm not using it for any purposes. And not using it for exposure compensation frees me to use it for something much more powerful, in my opinion. And that is, I use it to turn AI subject detection on and off. Now, obviously, this is going to apply to the OM1 and the OM1 Mark II. All right. So with subject detection, AI subject detection, we have 2 modes that apply to wildlife photography. One is bird and one is dog and cats. Now, we often think dog and cat applies to all mammals, but there are some mammals, if you think about it, the diversity of mammals' heads and eyes and colors in many ways is more diverse than birds. You know, the eye blends in really well on a raven, but it still stands out a lot more, say, than a bison in overcast light where that eye just gets lost in that dark, pelt. Well, believe it or not, there are times I don't want AI subject detection on. Okay, so for photographing birds, we definitely want AI subject detection on most of the time. If we're photographing things such as a puma, if we're photographing lions, cheetahs, if we're photographing fox, hyena, whatever dog, cat type animal, then yes, AI subject detection normally is just spot on. If I'm photographing bison in overcast light, I found that AI subject detection will often struggle. Not always, but enough to where I want to be able to turn it on and off, okay? I also will use bird subject detection in macro. Well, sometimes the eyes of certain insects just throws AI detection off. So I want to be able to turn it on and turn it off quickly. Now, when I turn AI subject detection off, I'm just going back to good old-fashioned autofocus, right? Continuous autofocus. And that's what I want to use in those situations when AI is not, nailing it like it normally does. So here's the thing. By programming AI subject detection to the exposure compensation button, it gives me 2 things. One, I can turn it on and off very rapidly. Number 2, if I press and hold the button, I can change the AI subject detection mode. And I'm going to show you that here by recording my camera screen in a moment. So again, let's think about this. Why would I want to turn AI subject detection off? Well, let's say you have, 9 greater flamingos in a line or close to a line. The default, according to subject detection, is to try to focus on the closest bird. Well, what if, for creative purposes, I would like to focus on the 4th flamingo in? Well, then I don't want to rely on AI subject detection. What if I'm photographing flocks of birds? I don't really want to just randomly let it grab any bird. I generally want something near the rule of thirds or the golden spiral or something in a particular part of the image to for sure be in focus. Well, I may turn AI subject detection off if I'm photographing flocks of birds in flight, trying to pick out a specific individual in a flock or herd. Another instance I might want to turn AI subject detection off is when maybe a bird is in a deep bush and it's grabbing other branches, maybe there's low light. Now, I'm going to say this. If you're often having to turn AI subject detection off because it's grabbing non-bird or non-wildlife subjects, you may be taking a lot of crappy shots. That's a consideration. But there are times where I need to turn AI detection off to allow me to use a much more finer autofocus point to grab that particular subject. Now, the topic of today's video is just programming one button. I will talk another time about using the FN lever to change rapidly between autofocus point configurations. So let's hop into the camera for a minute and let me show you how to program the button and the benefits of it, okay? Here you're looking at the screen of an OM1 Mark II with the 150 to 400 f4.5, 1.25 teleconverter IS Pro lens. That's a mouthful, isn't it? It's a phenomenal, one of the best lenses I believe ever made. If you look in the upper right of my screen, you will see an icon with a bird that has 4 little corners around it, kind of like a focus bracket, if you will. So there's an icon. It's the 3rd icon down in the upper right. So you see, it shows me what video mode I would be in if I were shooting video. It shows me my autofocus mode, and right below that, it shows if subject detection, if AI subject detection is turned on, and if so, what mode it is in. It is important that you get familiar with that icon. Okay, this is the OM1 Mark II icon, and it's where it's at for that camera. Now, you'll notice when I press my exposure compensation button, so if I press this button right here, you'll notice that the icon has disappeared. That means AI subject detection is no longer on. There you go. I just pressed the button and I can instantly turn subject detection on and off. That is a powerful feature to allow you to capture autofocus much quicker, both if you need AI subject detection or if you want to turn it off. The beauty of having it right there is it's so close to my shutter button finger. I can quickly reach it. It's not on the back of the camera. It's not on the front of the camera. I find that the buttons that are on front of the camera, I tend to hit them too often. I can't really use them for a lot of purposes where hitting a button turns something on and off. I can use it if it's something as while you're holding the button, it does something, and then you let go, it goes back to normal. So again, here's the plus minus button, and you will see that icon turning on and off. That is very powerful. Now here's another powerful feature of this. If I press and hold my exposure compensation button and I spin the rear dial, look at this. I can now change my AI subject detection mode. I can turn it off in here, which is slower than just pressing the button. I can go to human detection, motorsports, airplanes, trains, blah, 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 or birds and dogs and cats. So very quickly I can move back and forth. So if I'm in the Brazil's Pantanal, like I'll be in August, and say I've been photographing, a macaw or a cotinga or some other kind of cool bird, and all of a sudden I see a jaguar or a river otter or a giant river otter, I just move to here and boom, I'm ready to focus. Now notice how the icon is now a cat head. I guess you could say it's a fox head, but either way, it's a dog or cat, right? Again, if I go back to birds, you'll see the icon changes. If God forbid I'm on airplanes, you'll see an airplane in there. But because this is about wildlife, it's either birds or cats. So by reprogramming the exposure compensation button for AI subject detection, I make it much quicker to change from AI subject detection on or off, or AI subject detection mode. Now, I know what a lot of y'all are asking. Well, I shoot in blah, 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 aperture priority, auto ISO. Oh, God forbid, for wildlife stuff. I know a lot of people shoot in aperture priority, but why do you want to go back and forth from aperture priority to manual? I know some really good photographers who do, but they miss shots. That would drive me nuts. Well, so for me, the reason I do the exposure compensation button is A, I'm not using it, and B, it's conveniently located. Now, you could do the red recording button for that. I just find moving my finger a little further back not quite as quick or convenient. If you program any other button, if you program a button on the back, you got to take your hand off the lens. You've got to do other things that I don't want to have to do. But if you insist on still using the exposure compensation button to control exposure compensation, then yes, you're going to have to program another button. Probably the most convenient would be the red record button or one of the buttons on front. The problem with the buttons on the front of the camera, if you inadvertently hit them, you may be losing AI subject detection. It's a lot harder to inadvertently hit the exposure compensation button. So that's my rationale. That's my logic behind why it's that specific button. Because I do back button focus, I can maintain focus and turn on and off subject detection, or I can maintain trying to acquire focus and just go back and forth. So for me, those are some of the key reasons why I reprogram that button. Now, I only reprogram that button on custom modes that are designed for wildlife photography, because I have a custom mode for wildlife photography, which includes birds, mammals, birds in flight. I have an environmental wildlife custom mode on a camera. That's for shooting little, kind of more like a blend between wildlife and landscape images. So yes, some of my settings are different. I program the exposure compensation button to turn subject detection on and off there. And in macro custom modes, whether with flash or without, I still use AI subject detection at times. It works really well on a great number of insects, reptiles, and amphibians. All right. So that's a great tip. Let me walk you through how to change that button. So the first thing we have to do, we're going to press the menu button, and we're going to go to custom menu. That is the gear, kind of that ugly orange or weird gold orange color. We're going to go to page 1, operations. We're going to go to button settings. We're going to press OK. We come into another page called button settings. The first one is camera button function. Below that is video button function. We're going to press OK on button function. And here we're on the exposure compensation button. You're going to press it, and let's just say you were at exposure compensation. Okay? Then you're going to press the directional pad 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times down, and 2 times over, and you're going to press OK on subject detection. Now that button is programmed to turn subject detection on and off. Now, if you're doing this in a custom mode, it is important that you go into a custom mode, which is on camera 1 menu, kind of that weird yellow-green. Page 1, basic settings, image quality, and you're going to go through your custom mode setup and save this change. That's important. If you're in a custom mode, you have to save that change. So I hope this tip has been helpful. It should help you acquire autofocus easier and better. You know, if let's use my term speed and accuracy, this lets us do that faster in many wildlife photography settings. Hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you'll join me out in the field for a workshop. Maybe you'll join me online for an OM System mentorship program. Maybe you'll see me at Precision Camera teaching a one-day class or doing a presentation there. Either way, if you see me out in the field somewhere, please come up and say hi. I love getting to know my online community. Thank you. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas. Appreciate you guys. Y'all have a good day. Go capture some visually compelling images.